It's not when the money comes. It's not when the world claps. It's not when the spotlight finds you or the opportunity lands in your lap. It's before that. It's way before the result. It's in the silence, in the resistance, in the thousand invisible choices no one sees. That's when you know. You know you'll be successful when you stop needing signs and start moving like someone who's already chosen. You stop auditioning. You stop explaining. You stop trying to convince people that you're on your way. You become the way. That's the shift. When it's no longer an external chase, it's an internal certainty. You're not hoping. You're not wondering. You're not asking for permission to rise. You expect it, not from entitlement, from alignment, because you've done the work. You've built the mind. You've planted the roots. And now the fruit is inevitable. That's how you know. When the work becomes sacred, when repetition becomes rhythm, when the boring becomes the birthplace of mastery, you don't avoid boredom anymore. You crave it because you know that greatness isn't built in intensity. It's built in consistency. And now you're consistent without applause. You're focused without pressure. You're disciplined without supervision because this is who you are now. Not a phase, not a sprint, not until I feel like quitting. It's who you've become. You show up when it's hard. You execute when it's slow. You stay when others leave. That's how you know. Not when they notice. Not when they validate, but when it no longer matters if they do. Because you're not chasing their attention. You're honoring your own assignment. And when that switch flips, when the mission gets louder than the mood, you become inevitable. Then we keep going deeper into the layers where most never look, but where success quietly takes root. Because the moment you stop needing proof and start acting like the proof, you're already on your way. You know you'll be successful when your days no longer rely on energy. They run on execution. When you're not counting on motivation, you're counting on your standards. You've built them high. You've made them non-negotiable. And now you follow through because it's who you are, not because it's how you feel. That's the difference. The average wait for emotions to guide them. The uncommon let identity lead them. And when identity leads, success follows. Not by accident, not by luck, but by law. Because success isn't magic, it's mechanical. A system, a pattern, a sequence of cause and effect built on the backbone of discipline. And when you're in that rhythm, you don't doubt the outcome. You deliver it. Because you've built your inner world so tight, so focused, so committed, that distractions feel like betrayal. Excuses feel like theft. And wasting time feels like insulting your future. That's how you know. When you start protecting your schedule like it's sacred. When your calendar reflects your calling. When your silence becomes more powerful than their noise. You no longer need to announce that you're building something. You are the announcement. Your energy shifts the room before you say a word. Your presence becomes a message louder than your pitch. And that power, that's what separates dreamers from doers. Dreamers hope for a good year. Doers engineer a good day every day. Dreamers look for inspiration. Doers become inspirational. Dreamers wait. Doers win. And you've already chosen. You've already left the shallow. You've already crossed the line. Now it's just a matter of when the world catches up. Then we dive further into the territory where most people stop, but where success truly begins. Because here's what they won't tell you. Success isn't a feeling. It's a frequency. And once you lock into that frequency, the universe responds. People respond. Opportunities respond. But first you must respond to yourself, to your own standards, to your own soul saying, I'm done living beneath what I know I'm capable of. That's how you know. You stop talking about change and you embody it. You stop planning for the future and you live like it's now. You stop negotiating with your potential and you become the contract. You know you'll be successful when your pain stops breaking you and starts building you. When disappointment doesn't discourage you, it defines you. When silence doesn't scare you, it shapes you. When resistance doesn't stop you, it refines you. Because you understand. Success isn't given to the strong. It's earned by the relentless, the ones who move in the dark, who build in the unknown, who sharpen in obscurity. And while the world watches highlight reels, you're in the shadows, making real plays. While they scroll for motivation, you've already finished your second workout. While they talk about ideas, you've already launched your third project. That's how you know. You no longer fear failure. You weaponize it. You no longer seek comfort. You trade it for clarity. You no longer chase attention. You attract it by becoming undeniable. Because when you truly lock in, when you marry your work ethic to your vision, when your habits scream louder than your goals, when your soul is aligned with your standard, there's only one outcome possible. Success becomes inevitable. Then let's continue into the kind of conviction that doesn't blink, doesn't bend, and doesn't ask if it's working, because it knows it is. Because success doesn't arrive on a golden chariot. It shows up quietly, dressed in your reflection, on the day you realize you've become the person who gets it done. No more talking, no more explaining, just execution. You know you'll be successful when you stop needing shortcuts, because you've fallen in love with the process, the long hours, the hard conversations, the lonely reps, the thankless days, the invisible growth, all of it fuel. You know the gym is sacred. The silence is sacred. The discipline is sacred. And every time you say yes to your mission and no to your emotions, you add to your momentum. And momentum is a sacred force. Because momentum doesn't just move you forward. It pushes distractions behind you. You stop entertaining chaos. You stop negotiating with people who don't get it. You stop needing to be understood by those who never had the courage to start. Because now you understand. The fastest way to know you're becoming successful is when your life starts offending people who've settled. Your energy becomes uncomfortable. Your silence becomes threatening. Your discipline becomes foreign. Your clarity becomes too loud for their confusion to survive. And you don't dim. You don't soften. You don't shrink to fit rooms built for average. You build new rooms. You raise the ceiling. You shift the atmosphere. That's how you know. You don't just enter rooms anymore. You lead them, not with ego, but with essence. Because you've become the kind of person success recognizes. Then we go further to the altitude where most lose breath, but you expand. Because now you're not chasing success for validation. You're living success as a standard. You don't wake up hoping for a break. You wake up knowing you are the breakthrough. You're not waiting to be chosen. You're not knocking at the door anymore. You're building the building they'll ask to enter one day. You know you'll be successful when you no longer care if they notice, because you're too locked in on becoming someone they can't ignore. And becoming, that's the word. You're not chasing income. You're increasing your capacity to lead, capacity to sustain pressure, capacity to operate when tired, execute when it's boring, and stay composed when the stakes are high. Because when you've trained for it, you don't fear the fire, you function in it. You don't rise because of hype. You rise because of habits. Not just once, relentlessly. You've stopped saying, I'll try. You've started saying, this is who I am now. That's how you know. Not when the money hits. Not when the audience grows. But when the mirror confirms what the mission always knew. You're already him. You're already her. You're already the one the world hasn't met yet. But the work has. Because the work knows you. The habits know you. The silence knows you. And when you're known by the work, you're already wealthy. You're already worthy. You're already walking in the inevitable. Then let's finish what we started with. No hesitation, no noise, and no doubt. Because when you know you're going to be successful, you stop negotiating with the old version of you. You stop trying to bring weakness on the journey. You stop asking average to understand excellence. You rise. And you rise alone, if necessary. Not from bitterness, from clarity. You're clear now. Clear that success was never a destination. It was a decision. A decision to do the hard things long enough to become the kind of person who no longer finds them hard. And now, you've become dangerous. Not to others, but to anything that used to stop you. Distractions, you see through them. Doubt, you walk through it. Delay, you outlast it. Discomfort, you devour it. Because your appetite has changed. You no longer hunger for ease. You hunger for elevation, for discipline, for domination over every part of your life that once whispered, you can't. Now you whisper back, watch me. That's how you know. You speak differently. You walk like someone carrying legacy. You operate like someone who's already successful because success is no longer something you pursue. It's something you embody. Every breath, every choice, every step forward is proof of what you've decided. You will not be denied. You will not be average. You will not leave this earth as a question mark. Because you've already made the declaration, I will be successful. Because I already am. They're everywhere. At your job, in your family, in your circle, in your comments, in your past, sometimes in your own mirror. Negative people. And if you let them, they'll poison your purpose, shrink your spirit, and pull you back into a life you were never meant to settle for. They don't always yell. They don't always insult. Some do it with a smile. Some do it with silence. Some do it by planting small seeds of doubt, disguised as concern. You really think you can do that? Don't get your hopes up. Just be realistic. They speak the language of limitation fluently. And if you're not careful, you'll start to adopt their accent. You'll start to speak like them, think like them, live like them. And the most dangerous part, you won't even notice it happening. Because negativity doesn't always slap you in the face. Sometimes it whispers in your ear. And those whispers repeated, unchallenged, unchecked, become the story you live by. So the question isn't if you'll encounter negative people. It's how you'll deal with them. How you'll stand when their energy surrounds you. How you'll speak when they try to lower your frequency. How you'll walk when they try to chain you with fear disguised as familiarity. Because here's the truth. Negativity is not just a personality trait, it's a strategy. It's a tool used by the insecure to control the ambitious. Because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your discipline exposes their distractions. Your courage calls out their comfort. And that makes them uncomfortable. Not because you're wrong, but because you're proof that it can be done. And they haven't done it. So they mock what they fear. They criticize what they envy. They label what they don't understand. But you don't shrink for their comfort. You don't dim for their approval. You don't stay small so they don't feel exposed. Because you didn't come here to make people comfortable. You came here to change. And change, real change, always attracts resistance. It always triggers the ones who benefit from you staying the same. It always disrupts the unspoken agreement of mutual mediocrity. You know the one where you both pretend life's just fine, where you both trade dreams for distractions and passion for passivity. But when you decide to break that contract, when you start waking up earlier, thinking bigger, moving with purpose, that's when the masks fall off. And suddenly, the same people who once called you friend start calling you fake. The same ones who once cheered you on in private start mocking you in public. But don't take it personal. Understand this. Negative people don't hate you. They hate themselves for not doing what you're doing. And you're just the mirror. You reflect the gap between who they are and who they could be. And that gap hurts. It stings. It challenges their comfort zone. And most people will fight to protect their comfort, even if it means destroying someone else's growth. So, don't be surprised. Be ready. Be grounded. Because how you deal with negativity determines what you attract, what you allow, and what you become. You must learn to protect your energy like it's gold. Because it is. Your energy is your currency. And you can't afford to spend it on every emotional beggar who walks into your life demanding attention, validation, or control. Some people aren't looking for support. They're looking for someone to sink with. Don't be that someone. You are not a lifeboat for someone who refuses to swim. You are not a therapist for someone who refuses to heal. You are not a punching bag for someone who refuses to grow. You are on a mission. And missions demand clarity. Clarity about who belongs in your space. Clarity about what energy you allow near your vision. Clarity about what conversations you'll no longer entertain, no matter how long you've known them, no matter how close they once were. Because closeness doesn't equal access. Just because someone was with you back then doesn't mean they deserve to walk with you now. The higher you climb, the tighter your circle must become. Not out of arrogance, out of alignment. Because elevation requires elimination. And sometimes the people you have to let go of aren't evil. They're just unwilling. Unwilling to grow. Unwilling to heal. Unwilling to take responsibility. And your presence, your momentum, your hunger, it becomes too much for their unhealed mediocrity to bear. So they project. They deflect. They inject negativity like a virus. But here's the medicine. Boundaries. Sharp, clear, unapologetic boundaries. Not to punish them, but to protect you. Because your vision is sacred. Your peace is sacred. Your destiny is sacred. And if someone cannot treat those things with reverence, they don't belong in your space. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Some only come to eat, not to contribute. Some only come to observe, not to uplift. Some only come to critique, never to build. And you are a builder. So build with people who speak life, who challenge your blind spots, who celebrate your growth without making it about them, who can hold your wins without dropping their worth. Those are your people. And anyone else? You bless them. You release them. You keep building. Because the goal is not to convert every critic into a cheerleader. The goal is to become so rooted in who you are that no amount of noise can pull you off purpose. That's how you deal with negative people. You don't fight them. You outgrow them. You don't argue with them. You outpace them. You don't hate them. You outheal them. Because the moment you engage their chaos, you give it credibility. And your vision is too big to be buried under petty battles. So rise above. Not with arrogance, with awareness. You know who you are now. You know where you're going. And anyone who doesn't support that path is not a villain, but a vibration. And you've simply outgrown that frequency. And when you outgrow a frequency, you don't tune back in just to feel understood. You don't lower your volume so someone else doesn't feel insecure about your sound. You rise. You move. You protect what you've built because negativity thrives in proximity. It feeds on attention. It grows in unguarded spaces. And if you don't set the tone of your environment, someone else will set it for you. Someone with unresolved fear. Someone with buried jealousy. Someone who never gave themselves permission to become and now resents you for doing what they wouldn't. But hear this. Their resentment is not your responsibility. Their bitterness is not your burden. Their lack of belief is not your ceiling. You are not obligated to dim just because someone else hasn't learned to shine. And you're not cruel for walking away from energy that drains you. You're wise. Because wisdom is knowing what to engage and what to ignore, what to build and what to burn, what to correct and what to cancel. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a negative person is to remove yourself from their reach. Let them sit with the silence your absence creates. Let them feel the shift when your energy is no longer available to react to theirs. Because some people don't change until the access expires. And your access is valuable. It's time you treated it that way. No more tolerating toxicity disguised as realness. No more confusing loyalty with self-betrayal. No more spending emotional energy on battles that can't be won because they're not based in truth, but in projection. Let them say what they want. Let them gossip. Let them misunderstand you. Your mission is not to be understood, it's to be undeniable. Your goal is not to win arguments, it's to win alignment. Your purpose is not to convince the blind to see, it's to keep walking in your vision until the light becomes unavoidable. So keep walking, keep building, keep growing, and let the fruit speak for itself. Because nothing silences negativity like undeniable transformation. When your peace remains unshaken, when your energy stays clean, when your progress continues, even with critics in the background, that's power. That's poise. That's presence. And presence is louder than protest. So speak less. Show more. Let your results echo in rooms where your name was once doubted. Let your excellence be the loudest rebuttal. Let your joy be the clearest defiance. Because when you stay grounded in your mission, the storms around you don't shake you, they sharpen you. They turn you from fragile to focused, from reactive to resolved, from hopeful to dangerous, dangerous to every limitation they tried to put on you, dangerous to the smallness they expected you to accept, dangerous because now you are unshakable. And unshakable doesn't mean untouched. It means you felt the negativity. You heard the lies. You saw the betrayal, but you didn't let it stick. You didn't let it stain your soul. You didn't let it redirect your destiny. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you powerful. You've become the kind of person who doesn't just survive negative people, you transcend them. You outlast their noise. You outlive their narrative. You outwork their doubt. You don't fight them, you free yourself from them. And in doing so, you rise. Higher, clearer, freer. And one day, they'll look up and realize you were never the problem. You were the possibility they were too afraid to face. So walk in that power. Protect that light. And never forget, the best way to deal with negative people is to become the kind of person they can't touch. Because the untouchable aren't guarded by walls, they're anchored by values. They don't shout to be heard, they whisper with weight. They don't react to every jab, they redirect it into fuel. They don't wage war with small minds, they build empires too high for small minds to reach. And that's what you're doing now. You're not fighting shadows. You're not chasing ghosts. You're not explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You are building something sacred. And sacred things are not tossed to swine. Sacred things are not displayed for validation. Sacred things are protected, nurtured, grown in silence until they are undeniable. That's your life now, undeniable. Not because you've convinced them, but because you've become. You've become someone who no longer entertains what doesn't elevate. Someone who no longer negotiates with mediocrity. Someone who no longer begs to be seen because you see yourself now. Fully, fiercely, finally. And the moment you see yourself clearly, you no longer need to prove your worth to anyone clouded by their own fog. Their fog is not your fault. Your clarity is not their curse. Their heaviness is not your load to carry. You are not their savior. You are not their excuse. You are not their mirror anymore. Because you've stepped out of that room. You've closed that chapter. You've ended that loop. And now you walk into rooms that match your light, not diminish it. Rooms where your growth is not a threat, but an inspiration. Where your ideas are not dismissed, but refined. Where your fire is not feared, but fed. Because your fire is no longer for survival. It's for illumination. To light the path. For those still trapped in the grip of other people's opinions. To burn away the lies that kept them small. To ignite a revolution inside souls that forgot they could choose more. And you are proof of that choice. So never again ask how to handle negative people. You transcend them. You evolve beyond them. You thank them for being the resistance that made you stronger, clearer, faster, deeper. Because without them, you might have stayed comfortable. You might have stayed quiet. You might have stayed acceptable. But now, Now you've become unignorable. And not because you shouted louder, but because your results, your energy, your essence now speak in a language they'll never understand. That's how you deal with negative people. You don't argue. You don't explain. You elevate. And from that elevation, you lead. With peace, not panic. With power, not permission. With grace, not guilt. You lead with a presence so rooted, so unwavering, so refined that even the negative ones will feel it and choose to either grow or go. Either way, you stay rising. You stay rising because you no longer need applause to climb. You no longer seek validation from the very voices that once doubted your worth. You've realized their opinion is not your oxygen. And now you breathe differently. You walk differently. You are different. Because elevation doesn't just change your altitude, it changes your identity. It reveals who you were always meant to be underneath the noise, beneath the fear, beyond the limits they tried to put on your name. And now that you've seen that version of you, you can't go back. Not for love, not for comfort, not for history, not even for family. Because loyalty to others can never come at the cost of betrayal to self. You were not born to be someone else's emotional landfill. You were not created to absorb everyone's chaos and call it compassion. You were not made to dim your light so others don't feel the heat of their own unlit fire. You were made to lead, to build, to become. And leaders, they don't waste energy battling shadows. They don't beg for understanding. They embody the mission until even their silence speaks. So let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them roll their eyes at your dreams, scoff at your standards, mock your momentum. Because one day, they'll witness what your belief built. And when they ask how you did it, when they finally see the vision you never stopped walking toward, you won't need to say a word. Your life will answer for you. And that life will be filled with peace. Not the fragile peace of avoiding confrontation, but the powerful peace of alignment. The peace that comes from knowing you no longer negotiate with negativity. You simply rise above it. And in that rising, you free not just yourself, but everyone watching. Everyone quietly holding their own dream in silence, wondering if they too can break free from the opinions that bind them. They will look at you and say, because of them, I didn't give up. Because of them, I started. Because of them, I believed again. That's legacy. That's impact. That's why you keep rising. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to the world and to yourself that negative people don't have the final word in your story. You do. And from this moment forward, every word you speak, every step you take, every choice you make declares, I am no longer defined by their fear. I am defined by my fire. Let that fire lead. Let that fire liberate. Let that fire light the world. And let every negative person who once doubted you watch from a distance as your life becomes the very thing they never had the courage to build. You didn't just rise. You chose to rise. And now, you never come down. Because once you've touched the mountaintop of self-respect, once you've breathed the rare air of true alignment, once you've built momentum without needing motivation from the outside world, you understand something that changes everything. Peace is power. Clarity is a weapon. And presence, real, grounded, unshakable presence, is the loudest voice in any room. You no longer flinch when negativity walks in. You no longer feel the need to explain your light to those still sitting in their own shadow. You no longer second-guess your direction because someone else refuses to leave their detour. You simply move with conviction, with rhythm, with grace that cuts through noise like a sword through fog. Because you now know negative people don't block blessings. Only reaction does. Only distraction does. Only surrendering your focus, your fire, your frequency to their drama. That's what steals momentum. So you reclaim it. You take it back. And you do so not with resistance, but with redirection. You turn every insult into intention. You turn every jab into jet fuel. You turn every you've changed into a thank you. I worked hard for that. Because you did. You worked. You sacrificed. You chose to keep going when quitting would have been easier, when matching their negativity would have felt justified, when firing back would have been a quick hit to the ego. But you didn't need that because you were building something real. And real doesn't react, it rises. Real doesn't flex, it flows. Real doesn't need to scream, it simply shows up again and again, undeniable in its presence, untouchable in its purpose. So from this point forward, you make a vow, a sacred, quiet, unshakable vow, that you will never again lower your frequency to connect with someone unwilling to rise, that you will never again trade your peace for proximity, your clarity for closeness, your purpose for popularity, because what you're building is bigger than their opinion. It's bigger than their projection. It's bigger than their fear. And the more you walk in that truth, the quieter the critics become. Because eventually, even negativity gets tired of chasing someone who refuses to turn around. And when you don't turn around, you turn the tide. You break the cycle. You stop the generational loop of gossip and doubt and shame and playing small. You become the interruption. You become the shift. You become the line in the sand. And from that line, you don't beg. You don't explain. You don't look back. You build forward with people who sharpen your mind, with environments that fuel your energy, with habits that pull you closer to the vision that once only lived in your imagination. Because now that vision is manifesting, not by magic, by movement, not by wishing, by working, not by asking for easier paths, but by walking the one that most people refuse to take. And that path is narrow. That path is silent. That path is uphill, but it leads to freedom. And freedom is the reward for those who are willing to face the fire and not flinch. So you keep walking, keep rising, keep leading. And when the world tries to pull you back into noise, remind yourself, I didn't come this far to fight shadows. I came to shine. And nothing can dim what I decided to become. Because what you've decided to become is not temporary. It's not a phase, not a trend, not a highlight reel moment for social media validation. It's permanent transformation. Because when you finally break through the gravity of negativity, when you sever the cords that tethered you to opinions, history, old stories, you don't return. You evolve. You level up into a version of yourself that no longer tolerates energy that pulls downward. You become addicted to truth, to discipline, to peace that isn't passive, but powerful. And the old noise, it can't find you here anymore because you've outgrown the echo chamber. You've rewritten the script. You've stepped outside the orbit of influence that used to define your limits, and now you orbit only around your purpose. And purpose is pure. It cuts through gossip. It silences doubt. It clears rooms of people who were never meant to walk into your destiny. Because purpose makes decisions easy. It becomes your filter, your force field, your flame. And now that you live in that purpose, truly live in it, you no longer waste time decoding the motives of those who throw shade. Because you're too busy building things that cast light. You no longer need everyone to agree with you. You no longer need everyone to like you. You no longer need everyone to get it. Because you get it. And that's enough. You understand that negative people aren't the enemy. Distraction is. You understand that they are not the storm, they are the test. To see if you've truly anchored into who you are. To see if you'll bend your vision to win temporary approval. To see if you'll trade long-term destiny for short-term validation. But you won't. Not anymore. Because you've walked too far into the fire to fear the smoke. You've climbed too many mountains to crawl for opinions. You've built too much internal peace to bargain it for emotional scraps from the people you outgrew. So here's the truth you live by now. Let them misunderstand you. Let them judge you. Let them whisper. Let them try to measure you with the tape of their own insecurity. It doesn't stick. Because what you are building is not just a life. It's a frequency. It's a presence. It's a vibration so elevated that only those who've done their own inner work can even hear it, let alone walk with it. And to everyone else, you simply smile, not out of smugness, out of freedom. Because when you've faced the weight of judgment and kept building, when you've heard the noise and stayed focused, when you've walked away without bitterness, only clarity, you don't carry resentment. You carry results. So carry them well. Own your growth. Own your light. Own the fact that you are no longer the same. And that every step forward is not just an escape from the old, it's a declaration of the new. The new you. The unshakable you. The unstoppable you. The rebuilt, refocused, reborn you. And in that version, there is no room for anything less than alignment, truth, and relentless elevation. So rise and keep rising, because now they no longer define you. You define you, and that is the end of their influence and the beginning of your empire. And empires are not built on reaction, they're built on resolve. Empires are not made in the comfort of consensus, they're made in the crucible of conflict, within and without. Empires rise when one soul decides, I will not be ruled by fear, by doubt, by the small minds of others who never gave themselves permission to become. And you are that soul. You've made the decision to build forward, to leave the noise behind, to silence the opinions not with volume, but with vision, to walk through the fire not with anger, but with alignment. Because aligned people don't need permission to rise. They rise because it's who they are now. It's in your bones. It's in your breath. It's in the rhythm of your habits, your standards, your daily execution. And this rhythm, it's untouchable. Negative people can't disrupt it. Drama can't distract it. Opinion can't distort it. Because this rhythm is set to the beat of your mission. And mission-driven people don't beg for peace. They become it. They don't defend their path, they live it. They don't lower themselves to meet old energy. They lift silently until the room either rises or clears. And when it clears, you bless it. You don't hate them. You don't curse them. You thank them for the pressure, for the friction, for the resistance that refined you. Because without them, you might still be explaining yourself. But now you express yourself with presence, with poise, with power that doesn't need to be loud, to be loudly felt. This is your new reality. You've stopped proving and started embodying. You've stopped chasing and started attracting. You've stopped lowering your standards and started living above the noise. And in this space, the space beyond reaction, beyond approval, beyond fear, you become something rare, untouchable. Not because nothing can reach you, but because nothing owns you. You've reclaimed your mind. You've rebuilt your energy. You've fortified your spirit. And now your life becomes the message, not the argument, not the rebuttal, not the clapback, the evidence. So let them say what they say. Let them spin their stories. Let them underestimate what they're too distracted to understand. You'll keep rising, not for revenge, not for validation, but because rising is now your default setting, because greatness is now your baseline, because peace is now your home, and no negativity can survive at that altitude. No drama can breathe in that frequency. No small mind can comprehend that clarity. So let this be the truth that echoes long after they speak. You dealt with the negativity not by silencing it, but by surpassing it, by rising so high, so focused, so faithfully that it no longer even had a voice in the room where your destiny lives. And in that silence, in that power, in that elevated presence, you finally understood. You weren't just escaping negative people. You were becoming the person they could never reach. And that is the highest revenge. Not vengeance, not vindication, but victory quiet, steady, undeniable. Victory over who you used to be. Victory over the voices that once lived, rent-free in your mind. Victory over the stories they told about you that you no longer believe. You've written a new script, One not authored by criticism, but by clarity. Not fueled by anger, but by alignment. And now, you don't need to respond. Your life responds for you. Every win whispers what words never could. Every moment of peace echoes louder than any insult. Every act of grace, every boundary kept, every standard held, they all become a chorus louder than every voice that once tried to break you. Because here's the truth they never saw coming. The storm they tried to bury you in became your garden. The pressure they tried to crush you with became your platform. The fire they tried to burn you in became your forge. And now you walk with the weight of someone who rebuilt themselves brick by sacred brick, who chose growth over gossip, purpose over pettiness, elevation over explanation. And when you move like that, the world makes room, not out of pity, out of respect, because people may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you stood, unshaken, unbothered, unreachable by anything not rooted in truth. You are now the lighthouse, not moved by the storm, but guiding others through it. You are now the example of what it means to take your power back, not with noise, but with nobility. You are now the proof that no negativity is stronger than one person who refuses to give it their attention. And from this moment forward, every step you take, every breath you breathe, every standard you raise is a declaration that you are done being pulled by the weight of anyone else's wounds. You are done letting fear, gossip, or projection define your identity. You are done explaining the frequency of your fire to those who only know smoke. Because you no longer belong to the world that tried to cage you. You belong to the mission that called you. And that mission, it begins with this. You rise. You stay risen, and you never come down. No need to talk. Just move. Don't explain. Just exist. Don't win the argument. Win in silence. Don't prove. Become. Let them leave. Let them doubt. Let them talk. You weren't born to please. You were born to lead. Every time you stay calm, you win. Every time you don't react, you rise. Every time you choose silence, you build. Not everyone can understand the healed version of you. Not everyone can hear the frequency of your elevation. They see your silence and think you're weak, not knowing you're focused, not knowing you're building an empire. From now on, you don't knock on old doors. You build new ones. You don't lower your energy to stay. You raise your standards to leave. You don't ask permission to shine. You shine and let the worthy notice. And when they ask, how did you change so fast? You don't answer, because your life is the answer. You don't fight them. You outgrow them. You don't hate them. You out-heal them. You don't chase. You build. You don't look back. You rise. And now, you don't come down. Not for comfort. Not for company. Not for anyone. Because you didn't escape the darkness just to dim again. You burn now. You lead now. You are untouchable now. And from this moment forward, let them watch the fire they couldn't put out become the light they can't ignore. It doesn't begin with motivation. It begins with a moment where you get sick of your own excuses, where comfort starts to feel like a cage, where you stop negotiating with weakness and finally say, enough. I'm done living like this. That's where discipline is born. Not in a perfect morning routine, not in a planner, not in a productivity hack. It begins in a war, a silent war between who you've been and who you refuse to be anymore. Discipline is not a trait you're born with. It's a decision you make over and over again until your decisions become your identity. And identity is everything. Because the moment you say, I'm the kind of person who follows through, the brain listens. And when the brain hears the same story enough times, it rewires itself to make that story true. That's how discipline is built. Not in emotion, in repetition. Discipline is a muscle, and muscles grow through resistance, through doing it when it's boring, through showing up when it's silent, through executing when no one sees. Because if you only act when it's easy, you'll only grow in fantasy. But when you act without feeling ready, you grow in reality. And reality rewards those who keep showing up, even when it's hard, even when it's slow, even when it feels like no progress is being made at all. Because that's the trick. Discipline is not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with applause. It comes with silence and discomfort and choices so small, they look like they don't matter, but they do. They stack. They compound. They define you. And one day, without realizing it, you become someone new. Someone who doesn't need to feel like it to finish. Someone who doesn't need to wait for the right mood. Someone who doesn't break promises to themselves, not even small ones. Because now you understand, discipline isn't about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it regardless. Regardless of mood. Regardless of weather. Regardless of whether anyone notices or praises you or validates you. Discipline is internal. It's the quiet contract you sign with your future self and refuse to break. Because every time you break it, you're not just delaying progress. You're voting against the person you said you wanted to become. But every time you keep it, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when no one sees, you cast a vote for the version of you that is unshakable. And that version gets things done. That version doesn't rely on motivation. That version moves anyway. Because discipline is not a feeling. It's a frequency. You either live in it or you live beneath it. And to live in it, you must be willing to do one thing. Choose structure over chaos. Because the world is chaotic. Your mind will be chaotic. Emotions will lie. Feelings will fluctuate. The world will distract you every single second you let it. But your structure is the shield. Structure keeps you moving when your mind screams to stop. Structure keeps you grounded when emotion tries to uproot you. Structure gives your soul traction in a world built on distraction. You build your structure with decisions. When I wake up, I do this. When I'm tired, I do this. When I want to quit, I remind myself of this. Routines, triggers, reinforcements. That's how you rewire discipline into your bones. Not by hoping for willpower, but by designing your environment, your schedule, your identity to support the life you say you want. Because if your environment contradicts your goal, your environment wins. So build an environment that serves your obsession. Cut off the noise. Declutter your space. Declutter your calendar. Declutter your mind. Because distraction is death to discipline, and clarity is fuel. You need to be crystal clear about who you are becoming, why it matters, what you're willing to suffer for. Because discipline requires suffering. Not suffering for suffering's sake, but chosen pain, meaningful pain, purposeful pressure. You lift the weight, not to punish yourself, but to prepare yourself. You say no to ease. Not because ease is wrong, but because what you're building is too valuable to trade for momentary comfort. And every time you resist comfort, you reclaim control. Control of your time, control of your habits, control of your future. And when you've lived without that control, when you've tasted the pain of wasted time, broken promises, and dreams left dormant, you'll do anything to get it back. Discipline is how you do it. One choice at a time, one moment at a time, one rep, one breath, one unbreakable yes to your future at a time. Because when the day comes, and it always does, when life punches you in the chest and everything feels like it's crumbling, it won't be your motivation that saves you. It'll be your discipline. Then we go deeper into the soul of discipline. where most people break and you begin, because real discipline isn't tested when things are working. It's tested when nothing is, when the scale doesn't move, when the business doesn't grow, when the results don't reflect the effort, when your body aches, your mind rebels, and your heart says, maybe I'm not built for this. That's the moment where the average turn around and the unstoppable dig in. Discipline says, I don't need results to stay faithful. I don't need applause to show up. I don't need ease. I need alignment. Because ease is a liar. It seduces you with comfort and robs you of purpose. It convinces you to rest before you've earned it, to celebrate before you've sacrificed, to slow down when the only way forward is through. But alignment is truth. It doesn't care if it hurts. It doesn't care if it's lonely. It doesn't care if nobody gets it. It just moves. It just executes. It just finishes what it started. Because aligned discipline has no emotion attached to outcome. It's about obedience to purpose. It's about becoming so rooted in your identity that you don't even recognize the old version of you who used to skip the hard things. Because that version of you is dead now. And in its place stands someone who has trained in the dark, built in silence, suffered with intention, refined in repetition. And through that process, you've built something unshakable. Not a goal, not a win, but a standard. The bar has changed. You don't wake up asking, what do I feel like doing? You wake up saying, what needs to be done? Let's go. Because discipline doesn't ask for your feelings. It demands your follow through. And when you start living like that, when you stop needing to be in the mood, when you stop requiring inspiration, when you stop outsourcing your consistency to your emotions, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to the version of you that used to settle, used to delay, used to bargain with time. You don't bargain anymore. You build. And every day you build, you stack evidence. Evidence that says, I'm not who I was. I'm not playing small. I'm not skipping my life to please my feelings. Because you know this, your feelings are temporary, but your future is permanent. And if you're willing to endure discomfort now, you'll build a life that requires no escape later. Discipline is that trade. Pain now for power later. Sacrifice now for freedom forever. And freedom doesn't come to the dreamers. It comes to the disciplined. Then we keep building because that's what discipline does. It never waits. It never whines. It works. Because now, discipline is not just something you practice. It's something you are. It's in how you walk, how you breathe, how you keep promises no one else even knows about. And the secret most people never learn is this. Discipline is love. Not the soft kind, not the sentimental kind, the real kind. The kind that protects your future. The kind that honors your potential. The kind that's willing to hurt now so you never again have to live a life filled with regret. Because if you don't have discipline, you don't have freedom. You're ruled by cravings, owned by your comfort zone, chained to the shallow satisfaction of just this once. But if you are disciplined, you walk free. Free from guilt, free from delay, free from needing to explain yourself to people who gave up on themselves years ago. You walk with clean energy, clean focus, clean identity, because you know exactly who you are. Someone who says yes with full commitment, and someone who says no with full clarity. And every no is a sword. Every yes is a seed. And every day you honor both, you become stronger. You become so consistent they can't compete. So reliable they can't question. So undeniable that even your past version wouldn't recognize what you've become. And what you've become is rare. Not because you're gifted, not because you're lucky, but because you kept showing up. You kept showing up on the days you didn't want to. You kept choosing forward when it felt pointless. You kept stacking small wins that no one saw until one day everything changed. Because that's how it works. Discipline doesn't knock down the door. It chips away until the whole wall falls. And when it does, they'll call it overnight. But you'll know the truth. You built it, brick by brick, rep by rep, early morning by late night, doubt by decision, failure by fire. And now the habits are hardwired. The standards are set. The discipline isn't optional. It's in your blood. You are no longer someone trying to be disciplined. You are discipline personified. Then let's finish what we started. Because the disciplined always finish. You don't walk away. You don't fade out. You close the loop. Because that's the difference between those who dabble and those who dominate. Completion, not just effort, not just intention, but execution. And now you become a closer, a finisher, a force. Because this isn't just about achieving goals anymore. This is about becoming a living system of integrity. A person whose life is the evidence. A person who doesn't need to speak about discipline because everything they touch shows it. From how you talk, to how you train, to how you think, to how you handle delay, resistance, and pressure. It's all precision. It's all alignment. Because when discipline becomes your way of being, you stop needing drama to grow. You stop needing chaos to wake up. You stop needing motivation to move. You simply move. No fanfare, no fear, just fire in your steps and clarity in your soul. That's when life bends to your command, not because you're forcing it, but because you finally became worthy of the life you asked for. Discipline gave you that. And now you protect it. You protect your routine like a ritual. You protect your energy like a fortress. You protect your identity like a flame, untouchable by excuses, laziness, or outside noise, because you've sacrificed too much to let average sneak back in. You've given too many mornings, bled through too many reps, fought through too many lonely hours to ever let that fire dim. So you keep it alive by showing up, by doing what others won't, by building a life so consistent, so powerful, so on purpose that no storm can touch it. This is the way of the disciplined, the builders, the doers, the finishers, not just winners, but warriors of self-mastery. And now, when someone asks, how do I get what you have? You'll smile not because it was easy, but because you earned it. And say simply, I didn't wait for discipline. I became it.